So apparently there's some people who think I may have something against Xinyan because I never mentioned her in these videos, but that's definitely not true. These two teams will always have a special place in my heart for being my one and only Abyss clear. But that said, I do understand the frustration with Xinyan fans kinda getting the cold shoulder from MiHoYo. So, like in my previous why character analyses, I'm going to explain some theories on why she isn't as popular, but also why she deserves some more appreciation. I was extremely certain that Hangout Event Series 2 would at least include Beidou, Diona, and Xinyan, but MiHoYo said nah, we love Noelle. While this is great for Noelle fans, this pretty much solidifies Xinyan's spot as the most neglected character in Genshin Impact. When 1.5 comes, she and Beidou will be the only characters to have no appearance in the Archon questline, no appearance in any events, no story quests, and no hangout events, despite them both coming out a long time ago. Beidou at least has her ship and crew in the game, so even if you don't own her, you know about her character. Xinyan, on the other hand, essentially has no presence in the game, so if you don't have her, you might not even know that she exists. This creates an unfortunate self-fulfilling prophecy of sorts where low exposure means you have a low base interest in the character and then you're not inclined to learn more about them. That means you won't explore everything the character has to offer and won't become invested in them. The opposite can be seen in this infographic by Sensor Tower, which shows mobile spending for 5 of the game's featured character banners. Zhongli, Ganyu, and Zhao have a clear increase in money when compared to Albedo and Hu Tao, which I think makes sense because these 3 characters were shown in the game's story long before their banners were available. By seeing them early, we get to see each character's appeal and form an attachment to them. Then we become more inclined to learn about them and gain a greater appreciation for their qualities. I'm sure a big part of the reason why so many people like Rosaria is because she was well featured in the Dragonspine quest, the Windbloom quest, and the We Will Be Reunited quest. It's true that in the Stand By Me event, Xinyan was available for free, which could have given her exposure, but you had to choose her out of the available 6 characters. So if you picked her there, chances are that you already liked her. The Lantern Rite Festival would have been a perfect opportunity to showcase her too, but it ended up being all Zhao. I hope that MiHoYo adds more hangout events in 1.6 so Xinyan can finally get some much needed spotlight. There are a few aspects of Xinyan's gameplay design that I could see being turnoffs for some people. I'm sure that some wrote her off because she shares the same weapon and element as Diluc, who is an overall exceptional character, even though they play quite differently. Apart from that, one of Xinyan's core gameplay elements is her shield, which has the unfortunate mechanic of being more useful based on the number of enemies hit. While her first Ascension passive does reduce the amount that you need to hit, it still stands that part of this ability's functionality is out of the player's control, specifically when fighting a boss, where there will only ever be one enemy present. Consistency is very important in making the player feel like when things go wrong, it's because of their own fault and nothing else. Even though this is a relatively minor example, having things just completely be out of your control can be frustrating. In the same way that being paralyzed and unable to move in Pokemon is annoying because it's completely random. One of the big upsides of the shield, however, is that it gives the player the Pyro status, cleansing debuffs in areas like Domains and the Spiral Abyss. Pyro works especially well as a cleanser because you can't freeze, superconduct, or electrocharge yourself, but the thing is, if you take enough damage and your shield breaks, then you lose access to that cleanse. Normally this wouldn't be an issue since you can just play around the ability's long 18-second cooldown, but unfortunately there's another 4-star Pyro character who can cleanse, heal, and give damage buffs, with the only restriction being that you have to stand within a giant circle. In my Amber video, I mentioned characters having effective ranges, and while I'm not afraid to admit that I ended up being completely wrong about Amber's burst having no range, I think this concept still does contribute to how a character feels to play. Xinyan's burst ends up pushing enemies away, which seems counterintuitive when you want the enemies to be bunched up so that you can get a higher level shield on your elemental skill. While this is a minor inconvenience, it is an inconvenience nonetheless. These things, while small individually, can definitely contribute to someone not being interested in Xinyan's mechanics and overall playstyle. I for one do not care about damage at all, to be honest, but I think it's fair to say that there is a portion of the community which bases their liking of characters on how well they perform with an average amount of investment. Outside of pure support, Xinyan is very clearly meant to be a physical damage dealer based on her talents and constellations. Physical damage is already outclassed by pure elemental damage because of how strong elemental reactions are, but it stays competitive thanks to things like physical damage percent weapons and goblets, but most importantly, the superconduct reaction. This reduces enemy physical resistance by a whopping 40% upon combining Cryo and Electro, which is why Razor is such a good physical DPS and why Eula will be as well. That's why it's unfortunate that Xinyan is Pyro, since that means you'd need to dedicate 2 other slots for Cryo and Electro. When you also factor in things like Viridescent Venera Anemo supports and healers, some players may find running Xinyan optimally to simply require too much. So up to now I've discussed why I think some players aren't interested in using Xinyan, but there are definitely some good reasons why you might want to try her out. First off, her shield strength scales off of her defense, meaning that you can finally make good use of those defense artifacts that once caused you pain and suffering. Furthermore, the White Blind is a free-to-play option for a claymore that has a secondary stat of defense percent, which also has a passive that grants stacks of defense up to an additional 24%. I understand that getting billets for blacksmith weapons can be quite tragic, but the option is available. If you get a good build with lots of defense, a strong shield is a great asset to the team. In most cases, shielding is better than pure healing since it blocks interruption when being hit. The level 3 shield also pulses with Pyro, making it good for setting up reactions and melting Cryo shields. Also, as mentioned before, its ability to cleanse debuffs can be extremely useful. With some constellations, Xinyan definitely has a lot of damage potential. Her C1 gives 12% attack speed for 5 seconds after landing a critical hit with a 5-second cooldown, so you can always have this bonus be active if you are consistently landing crits. C2 makes her burst always crit, which synergizes well with C1, but more importantly, it makes a level 3 shield on the spot. This makes it a little bit easier to manage that long cooldown. C4 makes Xinyan's elemental skill decrease physical resistance by 15% for 12 seconds, and C6 makes her charge attacks scale with defense. These will definitely increase her damage output by a lot, especially if you have a strong defensive build. Lastly, let's talk about why Xinyan is a cool character outside of gameplay. This section is pretty much what you would probably be able to learn about her if you were able to interact with her in the game. In terms of visual design, she definitely gets across the rocker aesthetic with her fierce, spiky outfit and bright red accents. She even has a drum on her back that makes noises when you move around. Yeah. If you look closely, you can see that her guitar has a pretty homemade feel to it with the square body and large tuning pegs, and that is quite fitting considering she did actually make it herself. Personality-wise, Xinyan is very hardworking. She was a pioneer of rock and roll in Liyue and is now pretty famous, but she did not see success right away. Before, when people were unfamiliar with rock, they disliked it because they didn't understand it. But instead of running away to another place where rock was more accepted, she decided to stand her ground and introduce a new era of music into Liyue Harbor. This persistence isn't only present in her music though, as she was once bad at skills like cooking and doing chores, but eventually she improved through her own dedication. As a performer, she also cares a lot about her fans and their perception of her. Like many other characters, Xinyan is quite inspirational. These were some highlights of her lore, but if you want to get a summary of the whole thing, consider checking out my Liyue Lores video. As I said before, I think this whole situation can be remedied by just giving Xinyan a hangout event or even a key role within an event. The same goes for Beidou too. Moving forward, I don't really see this negligence being an issue for new characters. New 5 stars have consistently been getting their story quests on release since obviously MiHoYo wants to advertise them and make that money. The amount of new 4 stars being released has slowed down, allowing them to have more time to develop ways to introduce them. So while Xinyan's situation is very unfortunate to say the least, at least we can be somewhat confident that no more characters will suffer a similar fate in the future. But anyways, some of you may have other reasons for liking or disliking Xinyan, so let me know what you think about her and her treatment in the comments below. That's all I've got for today's video, and as always, thank you for watching.